So it's day 3. It's final day. It's the last group workshop or session that we're doing. No, you're fine. You don't worry about being late. Um, and so I have something prepared that I want to go into to dive a little deeper. But I also understand that, especially since this is the first time we're running this webinar series, that an hour at a time is not really enough, especially if we have larger groups in the future. So I don't want to push too much further ahead without making sure that we don't need to revisit or rehash some of the concepts that I so briskly went through over the last 2 sessions. So um, we'll start by just any areas that you'd like me to touch on for the next 10 minutes before we move on. Just a quick 10-minute recap area. Anything else that was unclear or that you want me to just double tap on? I know that I kind of spent a little too much time trying to set that example up in the middle on Wednesday, and that kind of ate into our chunk there. But is there anything that's in the back of your head that's just like, wow, you know, this is just not clicking?
I had a quick question
Yeah.
about actions. Can
Yes.
you make your own action? Like if I wanted my action to be when I check this box on Airtable and I don't see it in the drop down list, is that just it? Like, is that not something I can do?
So there are Zapier does offer what they call custom actions. Personally, I haven't needed to do that, or at least I've
Hmm.
found workarounds for that. So, I've used some form of bot or something as a stand-in for a formatting step that I don't see is available, or something like that. But they do actually allow you to use I can pull it up and show you, but there are custom actions, yes, for certain, especially for specific apps, like Airtable, I believe, is one of them.
Hmm.
But I haven't explored them enough that I can confidently tell you whether or not these are, good for any particular use cases. But what I can tell you is that if you are going to be using custom actions, does require at least a basic, or sorry, a slightly more advanced understanding of like API requests. In most
Okay.
cases, basically, that's what they're saying. They're saying you can write your own code and then have Zapier send it back and forth and listen for it. Or you can use the predetermined ones that commands that we have. And that's not to say that it's not something you can do. And in most cases, or in a lot of cases, maybe you only have to do it once. Um, and then you can, have it set up or whatever. But I haven't tried it enough to really to give you a concrete answer on there. But I'd be happy to explore it with you if you want to book a time.
Yeah, yeah, I'll do that. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions like that? Any other what ifs and could we's? No? Okay. All right. So stop me at any point. But today is our final session, as I said. And I think the last thing I want to show you all is digests. I want to talk a little bit about digests in Zapier. Zapier has several built-in tools and workflows that allow you to sort of either bridge the gap between two apps or simply use them on their own. We saw the delay or the schedule built in Zapier action tool last time. But you may have noticed that there's also a digest um, custom or not custom action Zapier tool as well. And I'm just going to um, go through one use case of how this works. But before I do that, I'll just give you a brief explanation. So a digest is simply a queue of items or pieces of information or data that has been submitted and is to be released at a later date or manually released with a separate action. So let's take, for instance, let's say I work at a place called the School of Communication and Media at Montclair State University, and I have been unfortunately tasked with the job of compiling a weekly or a weekender, a weekly newsletter roundup that just showcases what other faculty and staff have been up to. And instead of soliciting that, or in addition to like a reminder email that goes out every Thursday with the schedule options here. Oh, also you'll notice that in between last time and today, they've completely updated the interface. So of course I'm going crazy. I'm going to be a little clunky today, but you'll see here. What I want to do is I want the weekender, this email here. I want this weekender. I want people to be able to use a form to submit their updates, their staff updates, and then I don't want to have to spend time formatting all that and turning it into a newsletter. I just want this to be the final result. And so I also want that to be released all at once in Mailchimp as a draft Mailchimp campaign. But because of Mailchimp works, it'd be way harder for me to like append every submission that I get as it comes in, because Mailchimp just does not allow you to actively edit a campaign via our API. So instead, what I'd like to do is I'd like to queue up the submissions that we've received throughout the week. And then all at once at a certain point, let's say like 12 p.m. every Friday, take all the submissions that we've received, shove them all together, push them into a Mailchimp HTML and CSS Mailchimp template that is fully coded, fully wrapped in and looks like this essentially. And so in order to do that, I need to use a digest feature. And the way this works is we create a new Zap. We set our trigger. Let's take our trigger. It can be an Airtable form submission, but this can be a Google form as well. A new record, our account. Zoom in a little bit. For this one, we have a base called the Weekender, and I'll just pop that open for you so you can see that on the side. We have our table. It's called the Weekender, and we're going to limit to the view, the working grid view. All right, we're not going to have it include file contents. We're just going to take these and see what we have as a trigger. Okay, we can see we have a recent record. This person has submitted a record, and this information is in here as well. I'm going to see if I have any of mine in here just in case, because last time we did this, I didn't realize that I kind of forgot I was recording, and I showed a bunch of email addresses, like real people. So I had to spend like an hour and a half after this editing little blurs on every time I showed an email. So we're going to keep it to my stuff only. Okay, so under Zapier products here, when we're choosing our action, I'm sorry, not Zapier products, built-in tools, we can see all of the options that they offer. And right up here at the top, we see under delay, we see digest by Zapier. We want to condense info from multiple events into a summary for any app. Okay, so perfect. What I'd like to do is I would like to append the entry. Every time we get a new entry, I want to append the entry and schedule the digest. This allows you can also have it release the existing digest. This is a whole different thing that you can trigger manually. But for our purposes, we just want to add this to the queue. So let's add this new entry to the queue, and we continue. So now each entry that comes in, it's going to be added to this digest. What is the title of our digest? This is going to be Weekender Instruction. I do already have a Weekender. And now this, the one of the biggest drawbacks for these digests is, and I've reached out to Zapier about this, is that there is currently no way to like open the the digest elsewhere in Zapier and say, oh, what's in there lately? What's the latest thing in there? The only thing you can do is set up, for instance, a different action, this one here, which says find digest and returns its current content. So you could theoretically set up an additional Zap that sort of acts like a button that you just click it and it'll send you an email with the latest stuff in the digest. And I don't think when you do that, I don't think it actually like releases the digest, so to speak. And by release, I mean restart from zero, because every time you release it, it empties it out like a big tank and then closes the gate again, and then the new entries fill it up, and then when it's time to release it, the content goes out and it's gone. So I think, and I can confirm this, but I'm pretty sure the only way to check on what's in there currently is to do the find digest action. But what we're gonna do is each entry has to be formatted the same way, or at least has to have common components. So what we will do is what we'd like to do is we would like to have each entry similar to how you see with this here. We want each entry to contain a featured image, a headline, some body text, and a learn more link. So luckily, we've set up our form in the Weekender in our Airtable. We've set up this form where I explain what this is, and we have their name and email. We have a headline, body text, learn more link, and a featured image. Those are all the components that we want, and you can see them appear here. Now, the name and email is separate. That is so I can send, thanks for submitting stuff to the Weekender, and send a little confirmation email like this. And you can see what that looks like here. Thank you for submitting an item. It just gives the name, and then it links to the image. And basically, I'm doing this already, but I'm pushing out every one of them as a confirmation email as they go into the digest. So because this is going to appear in Mailchimp, or maybe it's not, maybe you want to put it into a Google Doc, you want to put it into a spreadsheet or whatever. Because we're going into Mailchimp, we want the entries to each have like structure and symmetry. So I want to write a little HTML. We'll just do H2, and then we will insert the headline that they gave us. Mhm. Where is it? Am I going crazy? Hold on a second. No, I'm not going crazy. It should be there. Let's find new records real quick. There we go. All right, let's use this one instead. Sorry. That confused me for a second. Okay, I'd like to enter the information that we received. So here's our featured image. It's going to be featured image URL. We got it right here. We're going to add the featured image here. And we're actually going to do, instead of we're going to write image search equals quote, quote. And this is a basic HTML tag. You don't have to worry about any of that. If you want to add some style formatting, you can do that as well. You can add, the max width and all that stuff. If you know HTML, then you can do this, on your own. You can do width equals, width is 800 pixels, and so forth. And you can continue, you can do as much of this or as little of this as you need. In fact, I like to usually add the style tag at the end. But we're going to, essentially what's going to happen here is, boom, we're adding our image tags. We're going to add an H2. I can't type today. And then we're going to insert the heading. There it is, headline. Then we'll add our paragraph tags. Oops. And we're going to insert the body text, or in this case, item description. Then we're going to add a new paragraph. And we're going to insert, we're going to say learn more, colon. Then we're going to add another a link tag here. And in there, we're going to insert the featured image URL. I'm sorry, not the featured image URL, the learn more item URL. And then also going to put the item URL in plain text here that will be hyperlinked. And then maybe we'll add a little HR divider. Okay, now what this does is now we have our basic text elements, or our basic HTML elements here. We've got, again, we've got the image up top, we've got the header, we've got the paragraph text, we've got the learn more. Maybe we add a little bold tag to the learn more just to make it stand out. And then we've got it right there. And we've got our little divider as well. And maybe we'll add a line break before the HR tag. And HR is just a horizontal line. And now I want to know the frequency. So how often do we want this? When a new entry comes in, it's added to this. Maybe we also add, you can also add style tags at the top if you want to differentiate them, or if you really wanted to do an HR tag at the top and the bottom, just to sort of differentiate in the actual digest, that's fine too. But we want to know how often this is going to be released. So we can either do this by a schedule, daily, monthly, weekly. We can do it at a threshold. So in case you are using the digest to push out notifications, let's say when a new story is made available for republication, but you don't want to spam the group or whatever with every single time, you can let it, after 5 submissions in the queue or in the digest, it'll release the digest in one email. I've done that in the past. Or you can always have it pair with a manual sort of release digest zap, which essentially will allow you to collect entries or things from multiple sources, and then once the final step of a zap is done, that will be the final step, will be to release the zap. So it can happen at the end of an automated process. It can happen at a threshold of number of entries, or it can happen regularly scheduled on every day of the week. So what I'll probably do for this one is I will do weekly, and the day of the week, I'd like it to release on Friday. The time of day I'd like it to release is, let's say, what time is it? It's 3 p.m. Let's do 3 or 2:30. Let's do 3 p.m. I don't know actually if you could do integers, or I'm sorry, half hours on this. It doesn't look like you can. That's something you can work out with maybe a manual release where you do it a separate schedules app every week at 12:30 p.m. It you use and then you do a release digest. That's another option. But for us, we can see here, this is what is in the digest right now. It's one entry. It's full of a bunch of stuff. Um, and 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 then there's our digest, right? So what we need to do now is we need to have another step that takes the digest and then puts it inside its little HTML container, because every new entry is not going to have our header and our opening text or our footer. So we need to insert the middle part, the meat, into between the buns of the hamburger. And so working in concert between the digest as they build up, and then having that once that also scheduled on Friday to have a Mailchimp campaign after the digest is released, allows us to collect things on the side and then merge them together at once and put them out into the world or into a draft, area where we need it to happen. I'm going to pause there. How's this concept rocking with you guys so far? What are we thinking? Do we want to maybe see another use case of this, or do we want to talk about how you can apply this to you? I mean, I really want to. I'm trying not to just monologue the entire time on this third one and pause and everything, but I can keep going if you want, and we can go to more advanced stuff. But I just want to get a
This,
gauge of the room here.
I mean, for me personally, this makes sense. I think I'm curious. I know you've got a bunch of different use cases for publishers. I would love to hear what's working well, especially for people in local news.
Sure. I wish more people in local news would do this kind of stuff, and as
Mm.
opposed to jumping straight from I've just learned how to use WordPress to I now want to do AI everything, and they're skipping over what I think is the most useful, computer assisted reporting, which is basic automation as opposed to magic robot assistant slave. Like it just Amazon rainforest burning, cute clippy kind of a thing. But unfortunately, a lot of news organizations, or especially very local ones. Oh, Lee says, if you don't know HTML, chat can help. Yes. Again, as much as I hate the bots, that is where they are useful. And I've shown you, we've seen in previous sessions that I've just hopped over to Claude or hopped over to chat and just say, hey, format this in HTML for me. And if I wanted to for this one, I might actually do that. I can even say, for instance, let's go over here and say, now, since we have the HTML for the individual entries, I can come over here and I can say, maybe, you know what, you want to use chat or Claude? Let's use Claude. I like Claude better. I like the colors better. This is the HTML for a digest entry from a user submission. And you'll notice that, like, I'm explaining the context of what I'm doing. I'm not going to turn this into a how to prompt AI bots, but this is how I use them. This is a HTML for a digest entry for a user submission to a newsletter, Mailchimp newsletter. I need you to write the rest of the HTML and CSS for the newsletter template, into which I will insert each digest entry, or oops, each entry as a digest at the end of the week. Individual digest entry. I paste it. And actually, because I have these little placeholders here, what I'm going to do is just going to go URL. And I'm going to use the little wiggly brackets to show that these are variables here. Let's see. Now, again, if I didn't know all this, I wouldn't be writing this myself. But you can actually absolutely have chat do this for you. Give me 1 second while I finish this, and we will be. Okay, learn more. Href equals. There we go. Right. And then same thing here. And the good news is I already have built this, so I can show you what this looks like when it's done. or with the way I do it, but I wanted to show you the sort of the process as well. Okay, so here we go. It's writing the HTML for me in the sidebar. And then I can decide whether or not ooh, okay. So it looks like, okay, so that's giving me the preview. I just want to look at this code real quick. And this is going to explain, in fact, I'm going to say, can you add comments to explain each element in the code? This is a really useful thing to do, that if you are confused about HTML, the bots are really good at commenting code and explaining it. Comments are invisible text in HTML or code bases or coding documents that are there as sort of notes for the other developers. And you can see them appearing in this little, like, really small, I'm sorry, I'm not zoomed in at all. I'm sorry. You can see them sort of appearing in these little slash asterisks. And I can even say, make the comments more robust and explanatory. Treat me like a novice. And it'll say, oh, sure, you idiot. Here you go. So this is, again, this is where, unfortunately, these bots actually are very useful, because they are being used as sort of guidance and learning tools, as opposed to, it's not writing any copy for me. It's writing code, and it's helping me. I can see right in real time if this code is working. And that is sort of the limits that having to write in a mathematical or computer language, as opposed to writing in an English language. It's a lot less flexible. And this is the reason why, if you have it do things in JavaScript, if it writes one wrong or false or bullshit thing in the JavaScript won't run. So you are able to sort of prevent, or at least identify, hallucinations a lot more. So here we go. So I can already see here what it's done is it's explained here that it's got all the styles for each main heading, individual entry, making it responsive, style for the headline. And I could probably have it clean this up. I can just tell, because I've seen that this is not very tight code, but that's fine. And I'm just going to clarify, is there one section in the body, in the middle of the body, where I will be able to insert the HTML/CSS from the digest of submissions? Or does the code, or did you make individual finite sections and then it can explain to me answer? I just want to know, like, did it just say like entry 1, entry 2, entry 3 in the code? Because I won't be able to just insert that right away. And it looks like it did. So it made it so that each individual, like a finite number of digest entries. And I don't want that. I want, here, paste your digest entries here. So now what I can do is let's check the preview. Okay. So I'm going to send it a picture of the preview pane, and I'm going to say, this looks like shit. Make it better. Beater. Right. Or if you already have, you already have the style, in most cases, what I do is I'll go into Mailchimp and I'll create a template using HTML only, or I'll convert one to HTML and I'll just paste that in there and work with it. But you're very rarely starting from literal scratch like this. But boom, I said, make it better. I have a little mean to it, which tends to work for some reason. And now we have a relatively reasonable Mailchimp campaign template. So I'll take this, I'm going to copy the code, open up Mailchimp, and I'm going to create a new template. Somebody remind me when we get to 2:35 to take a breather and a break and like check in, because I might get a little carried away on this. All right, under our campaigns, let me create an email template. Get started. I want to paste in code. And there it is. There's my new thing. Now I can use this as a template, but I think if I'm not mistaken, there should be, let's see here. There should be a Mailchimp app here that allows me to just create a new campaign. If I put the template, wait, why is it? There it is. If I put the template code into the Zap, I'm just going to be creating, I might not even need the template. So let's see here. Create campaign. Boom, create a campaign draft. Would it count? Wow, it's been a while. Okay. I could have sworn it was already authorized here. Maybe that's why I've been having some issues. So instead of creating this campaign, this template here, although I've just demonstrated you can do that, I'm going to create it right in here. And so if you remember, under the digest settings here, we set this to release every Friday at 3 p.m. So I don't actually need another release. This won't move forward until the digest is released. So this step will not be considered fully complete until that time comes around and the digest is released. So we don't have to worry about it making a new campaign every time we get a submission. That's the beauty of this digest step, is that it literally it fills up until it's time to get rid of it, or until there's enough, or until you add a second step. Like, let's say after this Mailchimp campaign was created, then we add a step that says release digest. That would be every single time it would do it. But because this is set on a timer, we should not have to worry about that. So for our campaign name, it's going to be The Weekender, and I'm just say colon, and then maybe we'll do a date. Do we have a date time anywhere? We don't have a date time, I don't think. Let's add a date time step. Let's add a formatter step. This is going to be formatting a number. Going to continue, transform, format number. Let's see, we have a date one. Oops. Why did it go backwards? What's happening? Something's clicking on my screen. There we go. We're going to be transforming numbers, and it's going to be a date. The input is going to be from our new record, or our new record. We've got the created time. Where is it? There we go. Created time. Am I crazy? Did I mess this up? 1 second. Let me just see what we got here. Oh, weird. I'm gonna format our number. It's going to be formatting here. We're going to be doing it as the value. Here's a new style for not perform rounding. There's a decimal mark right at the period here. We're going to be formatting comma for decimal. Yes, I'm just going to test this out here. Huh. Okay, screw that. We're not going to do that. Let's go back to our campaign. We're going to name it The Weekender October, and we'll add the date here when we add another step. We can add like a lookup date, or we can add the time. We can add a separate thing here. We'll just say the latest edition of The Weekender. There's all kinds of ways that you can get the date to show up. Audience, and we're going to choose from this set audience here. We have one already set up for The Weekender. No segments. We're going to leave that blank. I don't need to do that. Copy that here. That's our subject, our preview text. Here's what your colleagues have been up to this week. From name, Center for, well, I'll just call it The Weekender. From email address, and I'll put my own in here. Two. Okay, so now here's where it gets tricky, and I don't know if I showed you this in the past. I mentioned it briefly, but it does have the to name. You are able to do certain customizations based on the tags, the merge tags that are in Mailchimp. I'm not going to play around with those now because that gets a little too complicated, but you can see here they use these types of merge tags like F name, L name, all that kind of stuff. And in fact, I might even be able to use a merge tag to add the date here. So if I do asterisk, pipe, asterisk, I don't know what to call those, and just say date, it should add the date to the beginning. Date, and then we'll add one more, a little M dash here. Okay. The to name, I'm going to leave that content type. So this is going to be an HTML, or you can choose from a template, but because we didn't want to choose from a template, we're going to do it manually like this. We're just going to paste this in. And now we're going to come back here and we're going to find where the comments. Here we go. Hello, subscriber name. We don't need to. That. We can use the merge tags here if we really want to. That's where they come in handy if you want to personalize this. So here we go, digest container. So we are going to just simply paste right into here. Div class digest container, div class digest container. Paste your actual digest. Okay. So this is a sample entry. We're going to get rid of this and we're going to just paste the digest content here. So instead of pasting it, we are going to add a dynamic content block here. I'm going to scroll up and we're going to add current digest. You'll see there it is. The current digest will appear between the div tags. And that's essentially it. So when I click continue here, it should. Oh, we never tested. 1 second. We never tested it. So there's nothing in the digest. Let's test the step. Okay, it was added. Good. Continue. Continue. Now we should see some content here as we do. Perfect. So let's continue. Let's test the step. And in Mailchimp now, when we go to our drafts, we should see the latest edition of the Weekender. There it is. And when we go to edit it, we can see the preview. It looks a little crazy, but because of the image, we don't have a max width on the image. I want any images to be responsive and have a max width of 800 pixels. 800 is the standard newsletter width for most images. So here it is. It's going to regenerate some of this. And really all I'm looking for is the style tag right now. And I'm just going to go back into our digest entries and I'm going to apply that to each individual entry. There it is. Okay, that's too much. Make it simple. Put it all in one image tag. That's too much shit happening. I just want. There we go. Okay, cool. So now instead of this in the Zap, we're going to go back to here. We're going to configure it again, and we're going to paste everything in again. And now for our images, it'll look like it has style tags up here for the max width 100% and the height being auto. So now we're going to do this again and put our actual digest stuff in here. Hit backspace, add the digest content. There. That's why we couldn't see the date formatting, by the way, because you see now that we've released the digest, we have one count in there, and the release time will have the date, October 11th. So we could have taken that and then formatted into a pretty date. That's fine. So let's try this now. Let's see if we get any different results. I don't know if we are going to. You may have to tweak this a little bit to get the right image. Oh, no, it worked. Boom. So we forgot to remove the subscriber name little placeholder there. And maybe we could try a merge tag. Let's see if a merge tag will work. Did the date work? That's what I want to know. The date did not work, as you can see here. But it does you see how the merge tags work here? This is exactly the same thing, and date does work, but I don't know why it doesn't work for us. I've never gotten these merge tags to work the way I want them to. And it drives me crazy. Let's try one more time. Let's try one more test here now that we've added the merge tag under fname and just see if that one works. I doubt it will, but no. Oh yeah, it did. Look at that merge tag work. It replaced it with test name, right? And that'll be swapped in. I didn't type this. I typed the merge tag. So you can see now that you'll get a greeting, a personalized greeting, which we've seen in a million times. And now, just like that, I have a relatively fully functional, essentially, user submitted email digest, email newsletter that it doesn't even have to be submitted from strangers. If you just set this kind of thing up with your coworkers, or if you maybe set up something similar to collect feedback or community submissions for events, calendars and things like that, it doesn't have to just be an email newsletter that's pre-formatted. Any of these things can work with a simple 3-step Zap. I now have a fully functional and automated content production process, which relies almost no reliance on any AI in the process. We had to use that for coding, but I know basic HTML. I could have wrote that myself. But if you didn't, you use it once or twice. And now we can adapt this to all different kinds of scenarios. So let me do a little temperature check here. How are we? Oh, yeah. Love using it for SQL and queries. Yep. Yeah, I like to use it for Excel formulas and Google Sheets formulas. Hey, I don't want to, write me an Excel formula, a Sheets formula that does this, and I can start with what I want, and I can work backwards from there and speak in normal human language without having to speak beep boop computer. Any questions? I'm seeing some nodding heads. That's good. Any questions or other ideas? I mean, part of the cool thing about these trainings that I've done in the past is that every once in a while there's somebody on here who's like, "Oh, what if you did it for this?" And I go, "Oh, great idea." We keep moving and we build new things. But what do you see? Lisa says, "I have perplexity, so I can swap between." How do you like perplexity? I feel like I will never forgive these damn companies for committing what I think is the cardinal sin of pairing ChatGPT, which is a bullshit machine, or let's say an autocomplete machine, with a search engine, which is a fact machine. I feel like that's such a cardinal sin that I don't use the AI searches, but you guys use them? Anybody use them? Lisa does. Heather, you
I
use them
use
as well.
them.
Are they good? Like,
Yeah.
doesn't it just create more work for you? Aren't you worried you constantly have to like fact check the search engine, or what is it? Maybe I'm missing something.
You fact check it, but it comes with citations.
Okay.
But it just depends what you're using it for. It actually does really well with the write me a script thing.
Yeah.
Um, and it does well with a range of things. And because it comes with the citations and it speaks English and not computer, I find it oftentimes easier to use than Chrome.
That is a huge, boon. And I always laugh because, in the early 2000s, I remember explicitly having to explain to my parents, no, mom, you don't type in, hello, my name is Carolyn, and I would like
Right.
to find a picture of a dog. You just type dog, photo, whatever. And now we've come full circle where I'm like, no, mom, you don't just type keywords into the AI. You say, hello, my name is Carolyn, and I like a thing. So we've sort of come full circle in that sense. And I do think that is my favorite, or I think the most valuable aspect, is the ability to now speak in plain language back and forth with a machine in a way that most people, that it was literally impossible up until 3 years ago or 2 years ago. Okay, we got about 19 minutes left. Do you want to see the craziest, most ambitious Zapier, farce that I'm embarking on? Because I do have something that I wanted to show you and to give you a sense of what it's a combination of the AI and Zapier thing, but I'll show you what I mean by that when I say that I insert little layers to allow me to talk to it more naturally. It's a very short overview. I think it's like 4.5 minutes, that I want to show you, that'll give you a sense of where my head's at for future things. And I think at this point, if I get any more complex than this, I might as well just sit my ass down and learn how to write my own API calls and stuff, because it's getting to the point where, like, why am I doing this? And when you see it, you'll know what I mean. But okay, here is my goal was to create a system that allows me to sort of drop a file into a Google Drive folder, like I download a screenshot, or I save a meme from whatever, or a report, and I want it to not only catalog, tag, and rename the file based on the contents of the file, but I also want it to then organize it in Google Drive for me, create folders for me based on priorities and data dictionaries. So I did it. It works somewhat, and I'm going to show you what that looks like from the Zapier end now. So you can see my screen. You should be able to hear me. I made this earlier this summer, and this. Okay, after an hour or two of toiling, I think I've finally finished. Look at that sucker. That's a big boy right there. Hold on, I got to get rid of this minicam thing. It's freezing my computer. 1 second. My video is like crashing. Come on. Oh no, don't freeze. Can you guys see me? Oh, you can. Okay, good. All right, here we go. My first foray into multi-step or multi-path zaps here, and I used it to create a file sorter, which is an idea that I had last night and wanted to try testing it. So the idea here is that any file that I upload into a particular Google Drive folder, which I've called Zapier intake, is then split into one of many paths depending on what's in those paths. So this first one, if it's an image, there are certain conditions that allow certain file extensions to push it through. And if it's an image, it gets sent to GPT with Vision with this prompt to have it describe the image for the following purposes. I've got a list of commands and I have it return its response in JSON. Then I use another call to GPT to extract structured data using the JSON response that I got from the first prompt and the values that I wanted to extract with some information about what each value is. It then gives me a response, and I use that response to create a record in this Airtable, which logs the transactions essentially, and it shows me what decisions the bot made. It gives you, every time you upload a photo or anything, it extracts the file extension, assigns it a category of either work or personal, assigns it one of several subcategories, and then gives it a subfolder. And you'll see why that's important. It also generates a brief description or alt text. It logs the file size, and then it gives a confidence score with how likely the information above and the assessments are to be accurate, and then it gives it a unique ID tag for future reference. So based on whether or not it determines if it's a personal or a work-related file or image, it goes down these paths, and that's just determining whether or not the bot gave it a work or personal. It goes through, and then it finds a folder using the subfolder that came from the extracted data here, this subfolder. And if that folder in the Google Drive does not exist in the auto sorter destination folder here, in work or personal, for this one it would be for work. If this, let's say if there is not a folder in this that says headshots, it goes ahead and creates them. And then what it does is it takes that file that we originally uploaded after it's been processed, it moves that file to the appropriate folder that we just created, to that folder, and then it renames the file based on the file name, the subfolder that it's in, the title, the created date, and the file extension. And so it's essentially a hopper that I can put any file, presumably any file. I know that there are some exceptions that probably won't work. If I upload any file to this, let's do our commitments. Let's open our commitments PDF here. If we upload it, and then we run our Zap, it may have already gone, but let's see. It's looking for a new item. It's triggering on a new item. Okay, so now we should see a new file or new record appear in Airtable. Back to our Zap. It's described this statement on DEI initiatives. Okay, it's going to create a new record in Airtable, which we see DEI commitments. It's put it under work and it's put it under reports. So it should be gone from Zapier intake. If we go to work, if we go to reports, we can see reports, DEI commitments, Center for Cooperative Media, and the original created date. Beautiful, baby. Look at that. And the file is there. All right, so you see what I'm working with here in terms of like how many steps you can get. I think you can only do 2 additional layers of if-then paths or filter steps. But as you start to build this out, and I kind of messed it up too because I shouldn't have done work or personal. I should do one for work stuff and then one for personal stuff. But it was really fun learning to set it up because I play a lot of Minecraft, so the hoppers and being able to auto sort items is really useful. But doing that with files, especially files that are not just uploaded by me and named and organized by me, but if I have multiple people organizing stuff or trying to organize it, you end up with a Google Drive, a shared Google Drive that looks like ours at the center, and I'm sure many of yours or any project shared drives. It's chaos, and so as I had a little free time, I had the idea, it came to me in a dream. And, I was like, let me see if I can do this because essentially it's basic logic, it's basic automation logic. And the only magic part that's in the middle is the ability for the bot or the tools to like look at an image and describe it or create an alt text. And if they can describe an image, then they can create a label for an image. And if they can create a label for an image, then I can use the automation to apply that label to the make it consistent from a data dictionary, and then use the Zapier automation to just use that as the name for the file or add tags to the metadata. And so making my things way more organized, but even just more searchable because it'll automatically add keywords to the file name or the metadata. And then instead of me trying to remember what I named that file back in 2022, I have a taxonomy that is automatically followed by a robot, and I can find things a lot easier, and so can my coworkers. And I'm now no longer digging through, miles of Google Drive folders and subfolders that are all the same variation of 3 names. So that's how I imagine trying to expand that kind of stuff. But you can see what I mean when I say at that point, I feel like I should just teach myself how to write the damn code rather than doing this cascading mountain, fondue fountain looking thing of automations. Um, but that's the kind of stuff that you can start to do. And again, I wrote no code for this. I didn't do any kind of development or coding or JavaScript. I didn't do any of that. I just followed the instructions on the screen of Zapier and then asked the robot when I got stuck. All right, we got 10 minutes left before the top of the hour. Several of you have scheduled one-on-ones with me, but now's the opportunity to dive in any specific issues. And if we don't have any issues or questions, I'll give you a rundown of what to expect in terms of the certification for completion and all that kind of stuff that comes with the package for this webinar series.
Can you talk
Questions, ideas?
about that kind of like hopper mechanism design? Like one of the things that I'm using is I'm like putting a bunch of RSS feeds together, and there's specific stories that I want and stories that I don't want that I will append to my digest. And like, of course, I would want specifically in my instance, like I want news about tech policy regarding like content and online moderation. But in a lot of these like tech journals that I'm using as RSS feeds, I get news about Tesla, and I don't necessarily want
God, I know.
Elon Musk related Tesla, but I do want Elon Musk in terms of like Twitter, or
Sure.
X. So I guess I'm wondering like, how are you creating these filterings, like these filter systems? What's the
Mhm.
best way? And is that way just putting like a ChatGPT step and being like, does this pertain to blah?
Well, the easiest way is to do that, yes. And I've seen people use that for like deduping as well, because that's a similar issue where, so you have two very similar entries that are different, technically have different file names or whatever, but they
Yeah.
are the same file because they were named by somebody else. So whether that's spreadsheet rows and data cleaning or it's file dupes, I have seen people or local news publishers do that for, community news harvest and entries.
Yeah.
It certainly is the simplest way, in my opinion, for somebody who doesn't know how to code that. But there are also, keyword filters are not AI. You can add certain keywords, or you can add a layer of generative AI where it gives you a confidence score, for instance. How likely do you think this is to be a duplicate? This is one of the things that a lot of people don't know, that these GAI tools, these GPT tools, were actually initially, the whole point of them was text classification, and using, for research purposes to do sentiment analysis, classify the text, give it the sort of confidence score, and other semantic metrics that take a while for a human to do. And so if you sort of lean in that direction and you say, um, you insert a step for a bot that says like, what's a percentage of this story, is it likely that it's about Elon Musk, or is it about like Tesla the car, right? And you give it a little prompt that and fiddle around with it to see how good it is at doing that on known examples. And you can also give it examples in the instructions. So the bots do a lot better when you give them good and bad examples. They're called one-shot prompts or multi-shot prompts, where you say, I want you to do this. Here's what a good result looks like. Here's what a bad result looks like. Now you try with this new information. So you can do things like that with the generative AI stuff. But in many cases, you might be able to cut a lot of that out, and have it sort of only throw to the AI when it doesn't pass a number of filters that will confirm it for you in the first place. So I'll pop open the screen share again, and we'll take a look at how the paths feature looks with Zapier, because the paths is what allows you to do that. And I'll pull up Oh, look, now it's now it's like the old preview the new Zaps page. I don't want the new Zaps page. Leave me alone. Here's the file organizer folder. And it's just, this is the intake and sorter. And then I think under the automation one, maybe I do need the new, am I going crazy? Did I delete that whole thing? I better not have deleted that whole thing. Let's see. Ah, okay. Let's see. I think this is it. File intake and sorter. There's no way it's only, there it is. Okay. So the way this works is the action that splits it into paths is called paths from Zapier. And it allows you to do three things. One, you can have three different paths. If this, or if this, and then you have what's called a fallback. So the fallback allows you as a catch-all. So if it doesn't pass these two and you still want it to go through, you can say, if it's this parameter, do this path. If it's this parameter, do this path. And if it's anything else, do this path. And for me, I've set that up because if it's an image, it'll go to ChatGPT, but only certain images. ChatGPT doesn't allow you to submit JPEGs, JPG. It only allows you to submit JPEG, whereas Claude with Vision does allow JPGs. So I've just sort of created like a catch-all path for this step that allows me to, wait, why is it not showing? It's basically literally anything that comes through here will automatically be, or that misses the first two will automatically be put into the third one. So if you wanted to create certain conditions here, you could set the conditions, custom rules, very similar to the filters that we did last class in Airtable, where we've set time filters, we've set, text search filters and stuff, whether it contains this, does not contain, exactly matches, blah, blah, blah. This is your basic filtering system, and you can go all the way through. You can do and or rules. You can do all kinds of stuff. And you can always have it say, always run this path or use this path as a fallback. And as you see, I use this as a fallback over here. So when I set my conditions, I set those up one by one. You can do a bunch of different parameters, and as long as it makes sense for you, you're good. And then if that doesn't work, or if you'd like to get more drilled down on that, what I've done is that I've used the ChatGPT action event called extract structured data. Now, this allows you to take unstructured data like an article or like an image or like a description of something that doesn't have tags or XML tags or anything, and it can return it in structured data format. And what that looks like is, in this case, the image, the unstructured text, when I sent this message to ChatGPT with Vision and I asked it to describe these things, I asked it to give me a specific output in JSON. I only know that because I had to look it up, and JSON is structured, organized data, right? So I'd like it to do this. I want to like look at all of the things that are happening here. To get a name for the file, I have my instructions, and then I want it to give me its response in this specific format. And then with the extract structured data from that response, I say, okay, here are the values I'm looking for to extract from that previous step. Here's what they're called. And then it opens up every time you add a new value here, it adds a series of fields that allow you to further describe and give more information to the AI about what it's looking for to help it really zero in on the exact information you're looking. So in this case, we have at the top, we have description. It's a description of the file or image for assistive purposes. Should description be required? Yes. So it's not going to continue unless it comes up with a description. What kind of data type is the description? In this case, it's a string. It's a series of words and symbols. It's not a number. It's a string. And then you can give it possible values. This can be pulled from previous steps. Like for instance, if you have a set like data dictionary, like I had set up here, where maybe I want a specific set of folders or something, which I need to change this to do that, I can add those specific fields or specific values that it can choose from. It's sort of a multiple choice instead of making up its own. Same thing again for the title, for the tags, for the values of the folders and the nature of it and all that kind of stuff. Now, the confidence score is also lumped in with this as well. And you can see I'm basically leaving all of these possible values one blank except for the file extension, because I know I'm only getting these types of file extensions. So it has to be one of these four. And when it returns it, it always gives one of those four. And so then after that, I don't even really need this create record step. This is sort of an extra thing that allows me to just sort of see what decisions were made. But it's really not that necessary. So how are you imagining how are you imagining getting this information? It's from RSS feed, so it's already in a structured format in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Are you thinking you would like scrape the text out or pull it out and then have a bot act on it? Or because I feel like the way that people or publications publish articles, they don't always use the same tags for everything. They might call something a byline or an author line. They might, tags might be categories. So you might might need a little bit of generative or bot intervention there to sort of suss out the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been using mostly, I've filtered out keywords with some HTML code,
Mhm.
and been mostly checking if the GUID changes as like the way to determine if the article was updated, or if it was just the exact same, or if it was like another article under the same link. I
Yeah.
think I'm maybe struggling more with determining whether something should be added to or is collected by the RSS feed collector more so than the actual appending it to the digest. So we'll talk about
You
this
want
more.
to okay, I was gonna say, yeah, when we meet, we can test it out. Bring some example content that we can mess around with.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I really appreciate you all putting your trust in me for this week. Again, this is the first time we've done a 3-series webinar. I hope I didn't ramble too much. I hope it was useful, and I hope you take advantage of the office hours so you can get some individual stuff.